Good evening. This is the third part of our sixth chapter, electromagnetic induction. We ended our last session with mutual induction. So we will start our third session with self-induction. So what we were discussing under mutual induction is if you have two coils, so today we are discussing this new topic, self-induction. In the previous topic, mutual induction, what we had is we had two coils, one called the primary coil, to which we had connected a source of AC, alternating current, so that the current keeps on changing. And then we call this as the primary coil. And then on the same core, on the other arm, we wound something called as another coil, which we called as the secondary coil, to which we had connected a galvanometer. So when you pass current here, since the current keeps on changing, the magnetic field along the axis of this coil given by B equal to mu 0 Ni, because of a change in current here, we have a change in current in B. And since flux through the coil is given as NBA cos theta, whenever there is a change in the magnetic field along the coil, axis of the coil, we have a change in flux, and by Faraday's law, we know that there will be an induced EMF. Lenz's law gives a negative sign. We know that there is an induced EMF because of which there is an induced current because of the change in flux. Rate of change of flux is the induced EMF, and the negative sign tells you that the induced current should always try to oppose the change in flux. So because of this flux change that is happening here, since the primary coil and the secondary coil are wound on the same core, whatever changes in flux happens here, the same flux change will happen in the secondary coil, and because of the change in flux in the secondary coil, we have an induced current flowing through the secondary coil, giving a deflection in the galvanometer. And this is what you call as mutual induction. Because of a change in current in the primary, we have induced current in the secondary, and that is what you call as mutual induction. Now, in the same case, we have a flux change happening here and here because the same core has the primary and the secondary coil can be wound on the same core, or the same core is connecting both. So any flux change is happening here causes a flux change here. So there is a flux change in the primary coil also, which means there must be an induced current in the same coil, and that induced current which is produced in the same coil is what you call as, that phenomenon is what you call as self-induction. So if I'm just going to draw one coil, not two coils, just a single coil, here I'm going to just have one single coil. Let's say we have one single coil. You can connect this to an AC source, which means it will provide a changing current. Or let me now connect it to a DC battery, but then connected it to along with a key. Okay, so you can have a AC source which will provide a constantly changing current, or you can have a DC battery which will give a constant current here, but I have a key here. Now the magnetic field along the axis B equal to mu 0 Ni. This I've taught you in the fourth chapter. Now as soon as I switch on the key, the current I suddenly increases. As soon as the current increases, the magnetic field also will increase, and therefore flux equal to NBA cos theta. Because of an increase in magnetic field, there is an increase in magnetic flux, and therefore there will be an induced EMF minus d phi by dt, because now the flux is increasing. And the induced current I will be given as E by R. Now, according to Lenz's law, the induced current must flow in such a way that it opposes the change in flux. So, in our case, the flux is increasing now. Because the flux is increasing, so your main current is in this direction. Because the flux is increasing, the induced current must try to reduce the flux. To reduce the flux, the net current in the circuit must reduce. Only then, if current reduces, only then B reduces and the flux will reduce. So what the induced current have to do is, the induced current will now flow in the opposite direction to main current, so that the net current will now reduce, because in the same coil now we have two currents, the main current and the induced current. If the two are in opposite directions, the net current will reduce, and if the net current reduces, the flux will also reduce. So we have an induced current which will oppose the main current, so that the flux will reduce. Same, so from this equation, we will see that phi directly proportional to I, because phi is dependent on B and B is directly proportional to I, or phi is equal to a constant L into I, where L is the constant of proportionality called self-inductance. So please note the difference. This phenomenon is self-induction, and self-inductance is the constant L, self-inductance. Okay. Now, if you take this current as 1 ampere, then flux is equal to L. So, you may define L, self-inductance, as the flux linked with a coil when the current through the coil is 1 ampere. So, the first way to define self-inductance is the flux linked with a coil when the current through the coil is 1 ampere. SI unit, just like mutual inductance, SI unit of self-inductance is Henry. The other way you can define, so flux phi is equal to Li. The other way you can define self-inductance L is, EMF is equal to minus d phi by dt. That is minus d by dt of phi we just saw is L into I. If I take the L outside, it's di by dt, which is the induced EMF. Now, if I take this induced EMF di by dt, I think you can't see that. So, let me write it here. So, we have induced EMF. I'm going to take this constant L outside. So, we have di by dt. Now, if I take this as 1 ampere per second, then this becomes minus L. Now, you may define this. So, if you're just taking the magnitude, you may say E equal to L. So, self-inductance L can be defined as the EMF induced in a coil when the rate of change of current in the coil is 1 ampere per second in the same coil. I repeat, self-inductance can also be defined as the EMF induced in this coil when the rate of change of current in the same coil is 1 ampere per second. So, in the same manner that we defined mutual inductance, we have defined self-inductance. They have the same SI unit, Henry. Now, let me go back to this. So, now I told you, if the main current is increasing, the induced current must flow in the opposite direction, so that the net current will reduce, and if the net current reduces, the flux will reduce. So, your induced current is opposing the increase in flux. Now, suppose I open the key. When I open the key, immediately the main current in the circuit will now reduce. When the main current reduces, if this is reducing, the magnetic field B will reduce, and therefore as B reduces, the flux is now reducing. The flux through the coil is reducing. So Lenz's law says, now the induced current must try to increase the flux. So if the induced current must try to increase the flux, then it must flow in the same direction as the main current. If the main current is in this direction, induced current must also take the same direction, so that the net current will add up and it will increase. And as the net current increases, the flux through the coil also will increase. So please remember, this is like, it is called the inertia of electricity, because this induced current is always opposing the growth or decay of current in the circuit. For example, when I switched on the key, when the current was growing, the flux was increasing, the induced current will flow in the opposite direction, so that the net current will reduce and the flux will reduce. But if there is a decay in the current, that is, as soon as I switch off the key, the decay of current, that is, the current is reducing, because of which the flux is reducing, then the induced current will start flowing in the same direction, so that the net current will increase and the flux will also increase. So induced current, when the key is switched on, as the current is increasing, the induced current will flow in an opposite direction. If the current is decreasing, the induced current will flow in the same direction as the main current, so that the flux will increase. So that is why this self-induction is a phenomenon which is known as the inertia of electricity. We need to derive an expression for self-inductance, just as we did self-inductance of a coaxial solenoid, a pair of coaxial solenoid. We derived mutual inductance in the previous section. So we are now going to derive an expression for self-inductance here. For that, we are going to take a coil whose length is L. So we now have a coil here connected to a battery with a key. I told you can also have a source of AC. Only thing is we need current that is changing here. Let the length of the coil be L, the inductor be L. The total number of turns will be small n into L, because I told you small n is the number of turns per unit length multiplied by the length, and you get the total number of turns in that solenoid or inductor. Now, as I pass current, as I switch on the key and I pass current I, the magnetic field here along the axis will be mu 0 n I. Flux is n b a cos theta. Now here I can write n as n into L. B is mu 0 n I. Area I will leave it as A. Theta, as you know, is the angle between B and A. And I told you this is just a circular coil. If it is spread over a length, it becomes a solenoid. And the area vector is perpendicular to the coil like this. Magnetic field is also along the axis. So for any solenoid, the area vector and magnetic field will be in the same direction. So cos 0 is 1. So that is this. Cos theta is cos 0 is 1. So we have flux is, so we need to find out self-inductance L, which you know is phi by I, because in the previous topic I just told you phi equal to L I. So this is divide phi with I and this will get cancelled, and you have mu 0 n square L A. Okay. This can also be written as L is equal to mu 0. Instead of n, I may write it as capital N by small l, capital N by L. So that is n square by L square into LA. This and this can get cancelled, and you have the expression mu 0 n square A by L. This is also okay. Now here n, small n stands for the number of turns in unit length. L is the total length of the solenoid, and A is the area of cross section. This is in terms of total number of turns. So this is the expression for self-inductance given in Henry. SI unit is Henry. Okay. Our next topic is to find out the energy that is stored in this inductor. An expression for energy stored in the inductor. Now, why is energy stored in an inductor? Why should energy be stored in an inductor? Because I told you this induced current is actually, the induced EMF always tries to oppose the growth or decay of current in the coil. If the current is trying to increase, immediately induced current will flow in the opposite direction, opposing the growth in the current. If the current in the coil is decreasing, immediately what will happen? The induced current will flow in the same direction, opposing the decrease in current or decrease in flux. Therefore, to build up current in the coil, we need to do work against this opposition, and that work done is stored as energy. Now, we have our formula, power equal to VI, which you have learned in the 10th standard. This voltage here is the EMF, the induced EMF we are talking about, so I will replace it with E. So, power I may write in terms of work done as work done by 10 dW by dt. This is equal to EMF just now in the previous session. the magnitude is L di by dt. We just derived the equation when we defined EMF in terms of self-inductance. We wrote E equal to minus L di by dt. So if I'm taking the magnitude here, it's L di by dt into I. Now if you want to find out the total work done, dW has to be integrated. So integral of dW is equal to integral of Li di. Now this L being a constant, I can take it outside the integral. So I may write L into integral I di. The current has to be built from zero current to a maximum value of I. So integral of dW is W equal to L square bracket integral of I di. Integral x dx you know is x square by 2. So I di will be I square by 2 starting from 0 to I. So this I will first take the upper limit minus the lower limit. So we have this work done stored as potential energy, work done stored as energy, which is magnetic because it is the magnetic flux that is changing and that is producing the induced current. So this magnetic energy U is equal to, when it takes the upper limit, this will be L I square by 2 minus, when it takes the lower limit, 0. So it will be L, when it takes the upper limit, this will be L I square by 2. So I may write it as half L I square. So the energy stored, which is work done, is half Li square, where L is the self-inductance of the coil, I is the current through the coil. Now this energy stored is the total energy stored in that whole inductor. If you're going to find out energy stored per unit volume, then what we can do is, which is called the energy density. Energy density, which we've also done in capacitor. Energy density is energy by volume. Now for an inductor, it's cylindrical. So it's base area into height that will give you the volume, which is area of cross section A into length of the solenoid. So this is half Li square divided by base area into length. I'm going to substitute for L as we derived in the previous topic, L equal to mu 0 n square La. So I'm going to substitute this L as mu 0 n square La, and I for the magnetic field here for this will be B equal to mu 0 Ni. For any inductor it is mu 0 Ni. From this I is equal to B by mu 0 N. So I'm going to substitute that here. This will be half into mu 0 n square La, substituting for L. Then I will substitute as B square by mu 0 n square divided by An. So I have this and this cancelling here. This n square and this n square getting cancelled. And I have energy density given as energy density is equal to energy density. That is the energy stored in unit volume equal to half mu 0. The mu 0 here and this will get cancelled. So we have half B square by mu 0. If you remember the electrical energy density between the plates of a capacitor, we got the expression in the second chapter as half epsilon 0 E square. Here E square has been replaced with B square. Epsilon 0 has been replaced by 1 by mu 0. So energy density magnetic here, and in the second chapter when we did capacitor, we did energy density electrical. Okay. So this is energy density, and half Li square is the energy total in the stored in that inductor. Now something that you need to learn or you must have realized by now the similarities between what we learned in second chapter, capacitance and inductance. In the case of a capacitor, this is V, this is plus Q and this is minus Q. The capacitance is given by the formula Q by V, but the capacitance is actually decided by A epsilon 0 by D into K, where A is the plate area, epsilon 0 is the permittivity of free space, D is the distance between the plates, and K is the, if you have inserted a dielectric, K is the dielectric constant. So capacitance is a constant which depends on all this. So capacitance Q by V, which means if you increase the charge on the capacitor, the V across, the voltage across the capacitor plates also will increase, keeping C a constant, which is A epsilon 0 by D into K. Similarly, in an inductor, L is equal to flux divided by I, where I is a current and flux is the total number of magnetic field lines passing through that area, through the coil. But L is decided by mu 0 n square LA, which is the characteristics of that coil there. Mu 0 the permeability, and if it is inserted with any other material, let's say soft iron, then L becomes equal to mu 0 mu r n square LA, where mu r is the relative permeability of the material, magnetic material that you have inserted, the soft iron, the relative permeability of that soft iron. So just like K here, which is the dielectric constant of the dielectric that you have inserted between the plates of the capacitor, if you insert an iron rod, then the relative permeability also will come here. So mu 0 is permeability of free space, mu r is the relative permeability of the material that you have inserted within the core, n is the number of turns in the per unit length, L is the length, and A is the area of cross section. So you see L is a constant dependent on the characteristics of that solenoid or the inductor. Now L is also equal to phi by I. So L being a constant, if you increase current through the coil, the flux through the coil also increases, keeping L a constant. So you need to remember the comparison, that is C depending on the characteristics of that capacitor there, and L also depends like that. Okay. Then the last topic that we have here, this inductance is a scalar quantity. Both self-inductance and mutual inductance is a scalar quantity, because it's phi by I, and phi flux is a scalar, current I is also a scalar. So self-inductance and mutual inductance both are scalar quantities. Our last topic in that chapter is the AC generator, basics of which you must have done in 10th standard. Anyway, AC generator, it's a very easy topic. The diagram given in your textbook is a very simple diagram. Similarly, we have here, we have a north pole and a south pole. There's a magnetic field, and in between that we have a coil connected to two slip rings, which I think you have learned in 10th standard. These are called the slip rings. This is the axis through which it will rotate the coil, and these are connected to carbon brushes, and from the carbon brushes we have terminal T1 and we have the terminal T2, across which we can take the current, AC current produced by the generator. So what happens here is, we have a coil like this that is kept in a magnetic field. Now induced EMF and induced current, when we started off we said it is minus d phi by dt, which means if you can change the flux through a coil, then immediately there will be a change in, there will be an induced EMF and therefore an induced current. Now, flux for us is NBA cos theta. So that means you can induce current by simply changing flux, which means you may change the number of turns, or you may change the magnetic field, or you may change the area, or you may change the theta. Number of turns, we don't usually, we don't have any topic dealing with changing the number of turns, but change in area is what we dealt with in motional EMF. When we dealt with motional EMF, if you remember, we had a rectangular frame like this and a rod that was free to move in and out, and we had kept this frame inside a magnetic field. So as you move the rod inwards, you are actually reducing the area. When you move it outwards, you are increasing the area. So because of a change in area, there was a change in flux, and we found that this rod PQ, across the rod ends of the rod PQ, there is an induced EMF, and we had an induced current flowing through the coil. So that motional EMF topic is dealing with change in flux because of a change in area. Now, when we went on to mutual induction and self-induction, we found that it is actually change in magnetic field, because in the coil, what we did just now, we had this coil connected to a battery and let's say a key. Okay. As soon as I switch on the key, we are increasing the current through the coil, and magnetic field here given by mu 0 Ni. An increase in current is increasing the magnetic field, and because of a change in magnetic field, we have a change in flux, and thereby we are inducing a current in the coil. So mutual induction and self-induction, both are topics that deal with change in magnetic field and thereby inducing a current. Motional EMF is because of a change in area that we are inducing current, and theta change happens in the AC generator. So in the AC generator, like we have a generator at our hydroelectric power station in Idiki, where water from the dam falls onto a turbine, and the turbine is connected to a coil, and as the water falls onto the turbine turns, and as the turbine turns, the coil which is connected to it also turns inside a strong magnetic field. So what happens is, if initially your coil is in this position, the magnetic field line is from north to south like this. Initially, suppose your coil, let's say, is like this, okay? Then the area vector is in this direction, magnetic field also in the same direction, theta is 0. As your coil turns and reaches this position, the area vector is like this, but your magnetic field is still from north to south. So area vector like this and magnetic field like this, theta becomes 90. As it turns in this direction, area vector is here, magnetic field still originally to the right, theta becomes 180, now it becomes 270, and back it becomes 360. It turns, as it turns, so as the coil turns, the area vector is also turning, and therefore the angle theta goes on changing, and it is because of a change in theta that we have a change in flux, and thereby there will be an induced current in the coil. So this whole chapter, different topics we dealt with, is simply inducing EMF or inducing current in the coil because of a change in flux, which means you may change any of these things. Cos theta changes happening in AC generator, area changes happening in motional EMF, magnetic field change happening in mutual induction and self-induction. So now that you've understood this, it's easy. E equal to minus d by dt of NBA cos theta. Okay. Now, I'll write here. So, theta, as you know, is omega into t. Why? Because in 11th standard I have taught you angular velocity omega is equal to angular displacement by time. So, angular displacement theta can be written as omega into t. So, I am replacing that. EMF is equal to minus d by dt of NBA cos omega t. NBA do not change the area of the coil. The magnetic field is a constant magnetic field. The number of turns also a constant. So that is minus NBA d by dt of cos omega t, which you know is minus sin omega t into omega. So that minus and this minus will be, you will get EMF is equal to, we have a minus cos omega t, please understand, d by dt of cos omega t is minus sin omega t into omega. So that minus and this minus, I put a plus here, NBA cos omega t differential is minus sin omega t into omega. That omega I'll put here and we have sin omega t. That is the induced EMF in this coil. Now here sin omega t, you know, maximum value is 1 because sin 90 is 1. That's the maximum value of sin theta. So if it takes the maximum value, then the EMF in the coil becomes NBA omega, where N is the number of turns, B is the magnetic field, A is the area of the coil, and omega is the angular velocity. So that's the maximum EMF, which I will denote as E naught. So I may write my final equation for EMF here as E equal to the EMF generated, E equal to E0 sin omega t, where E0 is the maximum value of the induced EMF. Now looking at that equation itself, you see that the EMF is not a constant EMF, because as omega t keeps on changing, omega t is an angle. So as your coil rotates, this angle omega t keeps on changing, and as it changes, the sine value changes and the EMF also keeps on changing. The maximum value is E0. So please understand, this EMF is called the instantaneous value of EMF. That means at a particular instant t, what is the EMF? Is this EMF. This is the maximum EMF possible. So let's represent it using a graph. If I'm going to draw a graph to represent the EMF in the coil, this is the EMF and this is omega t I'm plotting. Omega t is an angle, I told you. So this is 0. Let me call this as 90. That is pi by 2. That is pi. 3 pi by 2. And 2 pi. This is omega t. So if this is your coil and this is the magnetic field direction, initially if your coil is like this, area vector and magnetic field same direction, theta is 0. Here area vector becomes perpendicular to magnetic field, theta pi by 2. Then as it turns here, area vector and magnetic field opposite direction, pi, and 3 pi by 2. That's how I've marked as it rotates the angle. Now if I substitute omega t 0 here, then the EMF is E0 into sin 0. Sin 0 is 0. So your EMF is here. Next, if I substitute omega t as pi by 2, sin 90 is 1. So you get maximum EMF. So that will be the maximum EMF will be given as E0. Then I substitute pi. Sin 180 is 0 again. So your EMF comes back to 0. I'm going to substitute 3 pi by 2 as 270. Sin 270 is minus 1. So this becomes E0 into minus 1. You will get minus E0. So this goes down to the negative value, minus E0. And then 2 pi is 360 and sin 360 is back to 0. So as your coil completes one full rotation, the EMF produced will keep changing its value like this. And this is why you call it as an alternating EMF, simply because for the first half rotation, that is as it rotates from this position to 180, the EMF is positive. In the next half rotation, the EMF will go into negative values. And this E0 is the peak value, positive and negative. And instantaneous value EMF, for example, suppose at this interval of time, at this time, omega t, at some instant of time, let's say the angle is here. The value of EMF at that instant is what you call as instantaneous value of EMF E. This is the peak value. And from sin omega t, you see that the EMF continuously changes, and that is why we call it as an alternating EMF. So that is actually the end of our 6th chapter. We've completed it in 3 sessions. Um, there is one more topic called transformer. In our textbook, it is in the next chapter. So we'll deal with transformers in the next chapter. Thank you and good night.